Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true firsthand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. Today, on the collective journey we will be embarking on, we have a very interesting, knowledgeable, and loving man stopping by to join us. He is no stranger to the benefits and challenges surrounding plant medicines and is the exact type of person I love having on the show, because although these medicines can be extremely beneficial, there are also key things to recognize about them that can potentially lead to challenges in our experiences. He is a former motocrosser who has had his fair share of injuries, is a holistic practitioner, a doctor of medical Chi Gong, and is a world-class plant medicine integration coach who has worked with countless clients to help them integrate the experiences they have had with plant medicines to ultimately create higher quality of life within their lives. So please give me a hand in welcoming Dr. Jason Gandzjuk to the show. Jason, my man, what is up in your world?
What's going on there, brother man? Just enjoying a beautiful day in heaven here in Carmel, California. Fascinating. Actually, it was raining a few days ago here in the morning. It's we get sunshine, we get fog, we get clouds, we get it all. And, I'm right on the coast, in Carmel by the sea. I drive 20 minutes down the road to the valley. It's like 85 degrees. So beautiful. You get the dark and you get the light here.
You want to hear a really funny story? And this works perfectly on the show too, which is I would see your posts and see where you post them. And every single time I thought you were playing a song by the band Carmel, because this is an electronic music group called Carmel. And they have the song Teen Days I like. So every time I was like, wow, Dr. Jason really loves this band Carmel. And then it took me a second, because I'm California illiterate, to realize that Carmel was a town, right? City. And is by the sea like part of the town name? Like, I would love to have that finally figured out for me.
Yeah, man. But just been busy working, going through a big transition myself in regards to being in a relationship and doing a lot of transition with my work, and now working full time as a integrated plant medicine therapist and integrating that medical Chi Gong work. And I wouldn't say taking a step back from coaching, but I would say taking a step back from the standard way of doing therapy and coaching that I was, where I wasn't integrating plant medicine. So now the majority of my work, the bulk of my work, is revolved around plant medicine work and integrating it with medical Qigong energy work. And of course, there's coaching, the 4 doctors, diet, quiet, happiness, and movement. Most importantly, you need to have a legacy, a dream, a purpose. Now it's just really changed, since that's my main focus, and that's what I've gotten the busiest doing. So that's what I've been up to the last, I would say, 3-4 months.
That's beautiful, man. And, I'm so glad you brought up Qigong and plant medicines together, because for me, I personally believe that it's so important for people that are looking to interact with plant medicine to at least have some amount of knowledge about the human being as an energy system, right? And so I'd love to get into, if you could explain what medical Qigong is for someone listening that may not be aware of what that is, and maybe your own experience of how that modality, that practice, has influenced your own personal plant medicine experiences. And if you want to expand that onto your clients and what you've seen with them being able to integrate what you teach in medical Qigong into their plant medicine experiences.
Yeah, definitely, man. That's a lot of questions in one.
I like doing that. That's my MO.
So let me first explain more so what Qigong is. And then I think it would make more sense to the listeners what medical Qigong is. So Qigong is a branch of martial arts, which is really important to understand. So Qigong, Tai Chi, even Tai Chi, is a branch and an aspect of martial arts. Martial arts actually originated as a spiritual practice and being really religious. And they found the healing properties in it, and that's how it's branched off to where there's different modalities like Tai Chi and Qigong. So Qi can be energy, steam. There's different ways to relate to Qi. You can say breath is Qi, breathing is Qi. I like to more so say Qi is in breath, life force, energy. Gong is consistency. So that's what Qigong is. It's Qi, Gong, consistency. So developing energy cultivation consistently. There's forms of different exercises that specifically work and target, for example, different organs, the liver, the gallbladder, the kidneys, the lungs, the heart, and so on. So having that understanding in the anatomy of the energy of the body, the yin and yang, the different vessels, the lower and middle and upper dantian, and even the chakra alignment, you're able to specifically tailor what exercises are going to be beneficial for whatever it is that I'm trying to work, heal, and cure. Have it be cancer, have it be chronic fatigue syndrome, have it be Hashimoto's, have it be anxiety, have it be depression, have it be Parkinson's disease. There are specific exercises for all of those conditions. Not that there's a Parkinson's exercise, but there can be, for example, a lung purging exercise coupled with tonification and regulation that can be beneficial for that condition. Medical Chi Gong is applying pretty much what Qi Gong is, which I just explained, on the treatment table. Because a lot of people aren't going to be doing their practice. Because in China, to heal cancer, you need to be spending at least 4 to 5 hours a day of consistent practice. So that's why they'll dedicate their whole day just to that. And they'll stay at the hospital and they'll be doing Qigong outside altogether, hundreds of them. Here in the States, we don't have that discipline. So that's where medical Qigong comes in. And you have to do a very, comprehensive assessment and intake with the patient, the client, to more so figure out what condition and pattern they're displaying with whatever illness and disease they come to you for. And then from that understanding, you're able to tailor your treatment with the correct purging, with the correct tonification, and then properly regulating the body. So that's a gist of what medical Qigong is. Purging is removing pathogenic Qi, excess Qi. You tonify deficient patterns, and then you regulate. So you're regulating the yin and yang systems in the body, the fire and water cycle, connecting the microcosmic orbit, the conception vessel, the governing vessel, and so on. It gets very complex, but it's beyond fascinating. I like to say Tai Chi, Qigong's like duct tape. It fixes everything.
I love that. And what's really cool about that is, something that I've been really coming into recently, which is to do the practice, you don't really need to understand too much behind it, right? You can just start and understand the basics of it. And there's also a whole other avenue you can get into if you're motivated to get into that, right? And I love practices like that. Like breathwork's another one, right? Where you can understand that, hey, this thing is powerful and it's really healthy for you to do. You can take on that practice without necessarily understanding the mechanics behind it, right? Or why you're doing it. And for a lot of people that I imagine are listening are like, oh my God, another thing to learn. And what you're saying so beautifully is, hey, you can get the very basic concepts of this, right? That Qi is all around us, right? And one of the ways I heard it said, which was perfect, is Qi is kind of anxious. And that's a weird word to add to it, but you'll see where I'm going with this. So Qi is all around us, but it's kind of anxious, It's kind of like, should I go hang out with that guy or girl? Should I not? And so by you practicing Tai Chi and interacting with Qigong, you're then showing the Qi like, hey, it's safe. Come on over and hang out. And so you're giving it an intention, right? You're putting the everything into a tension line that allows it to come directly to you. And I love that. That's awesome.
Exactly. And it's important to understand that imagination leads the mind and the mind leads to Qi. That's why what's more important and what's the primary prerequisite when you're starting a Qigong Tai Chi practice, it's not about gathering energy and Qi. It's about learning concentration and having intention and correct imagination. Because if you don't, you're completely defeating the purpose of going out there and spending time doing it. You can be out there for hours a day with the wrong technique and losing all the energy you're trying to gather and store. It's important to also understand that, of course, we have yang Qi and yin Qi. Yang, the masculine, yin, the feminine. We're yang. Human beings are yang. Everything on earth is yang. Mother Earth, nature is yin, you can say. So we need to first develop yang Qi because we're deficient in it for the most part. This is different from if, for example, I'm talking about, clinical condition patterns, though. This is more so just basic terms I'm using here. So in order to gather the right stages of energy, because it's important that you gather yang Qi, and then it's the yin Qi that you gather that allows you to emit Qi. So that's how there's Qigong masters that are able to light paper on fire, is because they gathered yang Qi, and then the yin Qi, which they're also gathering, they're using the two together, and that creates the force to where they can emit out and catch things on fire. And literally use their Qi that they're emitting from their palm of their hand. They use it like a shotgun, and that's how they can cut through things as well, like a sword. It's fascinating. So there are a lot of prerequisites when it comes to practicing Qigong and Tai Chi. Now, don't get me wrong. Anyone can go outside and practice Qigong or Tai Chi. This is more so in regards to becoming a skilled practitioner and doctor with working in a clinical setting, that you have to go through these prerequisites instead of just going out and spending hours and hours a day doing Qigong, Tai Chi. You need to do, the standing Wu Qi meditation posture for a minimum of 100 days, 1 to 2 hours a day, where you're just standing there working on concentration and charging up your lower dantian. Now, only from there, once you've gone past level 1 of training, you can progress to level 2, where you're starting now to integrate different movement exercises into the active meditation, because that's what Tai Chi and Qigong is, active meditation.
Yeah, you said it perfectly right at the end there, active meditation. What I see from my own journey, the most important thing or the most amazing thing that Tai Chi and Qigong have opened up for me is just that active meditation, because, we can meditate and that's amazing. But if we don't learn how to take the energy and the vibration that we cultivate in meditation and bring it out into the world, then what are we really doing? Giving ourselves 30 minutes to an hour a day to be relaxed, and the rest of it, we're living high stress, very young, right? And so what I love about Tai Chi and Qigong is it allows you to actually get into the habit of being alive while staying in that same mindset, which is in heart state, which is, to me, extremely powerful, because it is in the regulation of ourselves, in our mind, body, and spirit, that our experience of life either becomes diminished or brightened. We're talking about like the keys to being able to live an incredible life, and a life that is not necessarily consumed by materialism or any of these things, or, like as a form agreement, say, being impeccable with your word, not taking anything personally, not making assumptions, and doing your best, right? Like, this allows for the cultivation of all of those rules to come out, and you're giving yourself time, scheduled time each day to do that. And really what it brings up for me is, I had this funny play on words the other day. I'm a big word guy, right? And so I was thinking about priorities, and I started thinking about, in this case, how this for me is a priority, experiencing energy healing and working on myself in Tai Chi and Qigong. And I started noticing that priorities is actually a play on words. You could spell the T's part, T-E-A-S-E, and then it becomes, what are your priorities, right? What are the things that tease you away from your priorities? And I love that concept because, for me, there are so many things that tease me throughout the day, that try to vie for my attention. And it is in direct correlation to how well I am meditating and prioritizing Tai Chi, Qigong, and these energy practices that allow me to either stay the course or drift off and get caught into a million other things. So we're talking about amazing things that can allow you to live such a higher quality of life and a present quality of life. And that's amazing.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And how I've been able to apply the practice, it's part of my day every day. I haven't missed a day for years. And right now, having a neck injury, I'm not able to do my normal practice. So I've just modified things as needed where I can still have my Qigong daily. It's just I've had to modify it. But I have gone through many, many doctors and specialists when it came to really trying to treat a lot of the concussions and head trauma that I went through competing in motocross and cycling, where it started with stem cell therapy, TMS, doing hyperbaric oxygen chamber, ketamine, NADs, and I have nothing against everything I shared. It's just they didn't work for me. Not to say they can't work for other people. I've heard other people have very successful stories working with ketamine, NADs, but clearly those aren't applicable for me on top of the other things I did. Now, it didn't really help much at all. Wasn't beneficial. So that's how Qigong was actually introduced to me. Is I had a close friend refer me to a medical Qigong doctor, and that's when switches just went off in my brain and things just fired, and it was like, this is something I definitely have to learn, study, and start practicing daily myself. And learning a lot of Tai Chi from Paul Chek as well, that really got implemented in my life, and seeing the progress beyond what I would have ever imagined with a lot of the symptoms that were being displayed with my concussions, digestive symptoms, irritable bowel syndrome, etc., all literally started to come back online. What I mean come back online are those operational systems, those deficient patterns, those excess patterns. Everything started to get balanced out to where it's not that I just stopped having bloating. It's not that I just started having regular bowel movements. It's not that I just started getting my memory and my comprehension and my concentration back. It's not that I just started getting my willpower back. It's my whole body came completely online to where I was like a large tuning fork. Mm-hmm. My immune system is just lighting up with just compassion, joy, and strength, and it's thriving. My whole body has been able to fully benefit from the practice. It's not just my mind. It's not just my body, my gut. It's everything that is being able to completely absorb the practice, which is why I share it with all of my clients that I work with. The clients that I have that do follow their practice and are into doing Qigong and Tai Chi, because I have clients that really aren't interested in doing it, and I'm not going to force it on them, have experienced incredible healing benefits and have really been able to have a good impact from doing it. And I have clients that have done several 100-day gongs to where now they have done over 300 days consistently. And that's why I've implemented it into doing the plant medicine work and seeing, okay, I have an incredible practice I'm doing, medical Qigong work. And then I also have an incredible practice I'm doing is where I'm serving entheogenic plant medicines. Why not integrate and merge the two? We all know preparation is key. We all know setting, environment, of course, the practitioner is key. So let's integrate the medical Qigong work for preparation. And then let's work into the medicine. And then let's follow it up with integration, doing also energy work, which I really want to get into, where we're opening up the three bodies. In medical Qigong, there's only three bodies: physical, energetic, and spirit body. And then you're sealing them after an integration. So that's why I really like merging the two. It's like putting peanut butter and jelly together. Whoever created that idea was a complete genius. If you don't like peanut butter and jelly, whatever two that you like combining and integrating together, have it be mustard and ketchup, etc.
Peanut butter and fluff.
Like sticking the two together. It really is. Not to say you still can't have beautiful mystical experiences without it. Of course you can. I have 99% of the time myself. I'm jealous that I'm able to do this for my clients. I wish I could do it for myself. But I think just doing an hour and a half of Qigong right before I'm about to go into medicine work. And oftentimes I do. So that's the 1% where I've been able to experience it. But that's been more recent, more so than anything.
Yeah. And, I'm so glad you brought that up because like I asked a little while ago, I'm so excited to get into like, what are the differences you've seen, both as you just stated a little bit with yourself, but also with your clients who have maybe had plant medicine experiences prior to learning Tai Chi or any energy system, right? Really learning how the human being functions and what the human being really is. How have their experiences been altered or shifted after learning these modalities? And what would you say is the main benefit that you see people receiving more often than not? Maybe it's more clarity. Maybe it's a faster integration process. What do you see more often than not?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, it really allows you to understand the mind, understand the body, understand the anatomy of the energy in the body, understand how things are circulating and how things are needing, be moving up or down the yin and yang channels, etc. So just having the complexity and that understanding of the body really opens you up to have incredible healing. Because I like saying if you understand something, fully understand something, then there's really no question. If you understand fear, you don't need to be told how to stop fear, how to completely negate fear, if you understand fear. So if you understand really the complexity of the body, as you and I both are learning more of the complexity of the body, and we'll always be learning, once we learn it, we can see it. You don't really need an answer once you've been able to understand and learn it. So having my clients really learn that, as I've been teaching a lot of that to them, they're able to really start seeing things completely different, where they have really radical shifts in their life.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show. That's amazing. And, it really reminds me of, this idea that I had a mentor tell me, which was, so often we fall into, or I have fallen into rather, to make it more personal, patterns of perfectionism, all of these types of things. And really the only perfection that is needed in the world and in your world, anyone listening, is awareness. As long as your awareness is there and you continue to become aware of things, it's not about not getting things wrong or realizing, hey, you know what, maybe I'm not integrating these experiences that well, and having that awareness to have you ask a second question. Okay, so where do I go? I go to someone like Dr. Jason. I go to someone like Ryan, who understands these things, that can maybe point me in another direction. I mean, God, both of us looked at Paul Chek for that, right? We both had challenges in our life at one point and sought out the people getting the results we want. And then we're able to go, okay, those are the results we want. Okay, cool. Because we had that awareness. And so one of the things I believe that things like Qigong and plant medicines have the ability to do is simply create awareness, right? Like allow us to see things that we may have not seen before, allow us to see patterns in ourselves, allow us to see patterns in our loved ones, and allow us to become the leader in the sense that, say, if you have a family member who's really hurting and they're they're lashing out on you, right? The typical way to handle that is to say, fuck you, right? Like make yourself almost a victim, right? Like, oh, they're doing these things to me, blah, blah, blah. And if you have awareness, you can then go, wow, that person's really hurting. I wonder if there's a way that I could ask them a specific question or show them compassion in the way that maybe I'm not up until this point, that will allow them to be received better by me and to allow their energy to be fixed. And of course, there's a certain point where, yeah, if you're getting, into an interaction with someone who's clearly not down for any of that, like this is a point to separate yourself and use discernment. But I feel for me, one of the best lessons I've gotten from awareness is how to come from a place of compassion. And so I'm curious, how, if first, but also then how, if you've been able to gain things like compassion through your plant medicine use, and if so, how has that helped you gain awareness around the aspects of your life, the things we can't control, right? When your car breaks down, when you get stuck in traffic, I mean, how has that helped your reactions, right? Or rather your responses to those situations?
Yeah, that's another really great question. And my compassion with medicine has really been growing and will continue to grow. I mean, when I first started off with plant medicine work, I was more so being a participant. I didn't have nearly the understanding and depth of appreciation that I have now for the medicine. Understanding from my perspective that compassion is a byproduct and it's produced out of love. So understanding that love doesn't just have to come from myself, but it also has to come from my relationship with everybody and everything. Understanding that to love myself, I have to love nature. Nature is a reflection of me. There's no separation. If there's separation, that's when fear comes in. That's when conflict comes in, division. So the medicine has taught me that in many ways, and has allowed me to see a different perspective when it comes to how am I relating with the birds? How am I relating with the trees? How am I relating with just being on the beach and near the ocean? And understanding that the beauty I see in the trees, the beauty I see in the birds, the beauty I see in the deer is the beauty I see in me. To the degree I don't see beauty in something, have it be a person, a house, a tree, is mirroring the beauty I haven't been able to acknowledge with inside of myself. The medicine has been able to extract that out of me to where I've been able to gather that information and integrate it into my life. So when situations, for example, that come up to where a car breaks down, something doesn't go my way on how I originally had it planned, it's hard to really put it into words, but I have the understanding, knowing that everything is happening for a reason and it's happening exactly how it needs to happen for me to optimally grow and develop.
I love what you said there about, to the degree that I cannot see beauty in something else is the degree to which I cannot see beauty in myself. And that is so important to understand, right? Because that old saying, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? Well, what does that really mean? It means that something can only be as beautiful as someone recognizes beauty can be. If someone's walking around thinking the world is shitty or unbeautiful or any of these things, then of course the world around them is going to reflect that, right? In their relationships and their connection to their self and their habits, etc. And I love that. And, it really reminds me that, like you said, compassion is a byproduct of love. And so, for anyone listening, if you're in a state where you're feeling compassion over someone, it's a huge win to celebrate, right? And especially, in today's world, I did not celebrate my wins enough. And I imagine many people listening, and you, Jason, too, we don't celebrate our wins enough, right? And that's what allows us to grow resent for work, for relationships or whatever, because we don't celebrate the small wins we have, right? Like how simple life can be, how compassion, right? Just the idea that you're having compassion for someone tells you, I'm doing pretty good as a soul. To be able to find love in an otherwise challenging world, right? I mean, you look at what the media does and all these things, and someone said something to me very powerful recently, because I choose to look at what creates happiness in my life, right? And someone was like, well, what about all the terrible things going on in the world? And I said, well, there's really everything going on in the world at any time, right? So it's just a question of where do you want to put your focus, right? And for me, the answer was putting my focus on energies that will allow me to come through as the best version of me, because I realize that the best medicine I can give the world is me, right? And the best medicine you can give the world is fully you, right? And for anyone listening, the best medicine you can give the world is you. And so what allows you to be you more? Watching the news and getting dragged down by things that, yes, are terrible in nature, but you really have no opportunity to solve, or meeting someone at the grocery store who needs help with their groceries and coming at it full energy and allowing them to feel that love coming from you, right? And for me, these are the things that I've noticed plant medicines do so well, at least for me, and I imagine for you as well. And it's very interesting, because as I've gone on my journeys and I've developed and I've done more of the quote unquote work surrounding them, right? The trauma work, the energy work, all of these things, plant medicines have expanded for me, right? The experiences I'm able to have. And so something I'd love to ask you is, from the first time you tried plant medicines, whatever that medicine was, up until now, how have you changed in the way you look at medicines, right? And I know this is a huge question, right? But let's find a main takeaway, right? Of maybe a memory you remember from the first time you interacted with them to a completely shifted Jason now when you look at them.
Well, a lot of it depends on what medicine we're talking about, as I've narrowed it down in regards to what medicine I really resonate with and that I am able to really work with and through. Also, it's able to work through me. So our consciousnesses merge and we become one consciousness. And that's Bufa various, toad venom, 5-MeO-DMT, Pure 5, mushrooms, and at times ayahuasca. So how it's changed from when I first started working with the medicine to now with mushrooms, when I do the medicine, and San Pedro, actually, I forgot to mention San Pedro. So when I do mushrooms and San Pedro, I am able to see through the plant, which is something completely different from my experiences that I had with the medicine at first. It's come from a lot of medicine work. And then also, I wouldn't say necessarily all just medicine work. That's not necessarily the way just to establish that. It's also just being a clean vessel and being open to spirit emerging and flowing through you. That's how you're able to be clean and have access to that information and that consciousness from the plant. So that's how things have radically changed from beginning to where they are now.
That's amazing. And, something you brought up there that I'd really love to dive into real quick, because a lot of people are unaware of this. I mean, I was until the last 5 years when I really started understanding this, the whole concept of a dieta, right? Which is super important when you're doing a medicine like ayahuasca, but arguably important for any medicine you're going to interact with. And I'm curious, what are some of your practices that you would do for, say, a dieta, right? Or things that you're going to either abstain from prior to a medicine ceremony, or things you're going to add in that are conducive to the full experience of a medicine ceremony?
So that's a great question. You're just asking nothing but great.
Yes, of course.
My answer isn't to offend anyone. It's going to be a very different answer, I'm sure, than what people would, listeners would be wanting or expecting from me. So I don't necessarily follow the guidelines that how they're normally outlined, on the net and on the web and what you're recommended to do. Why? Is because my body can't sustain itself that way. I don't do well eating vegan. If I do vegan any longer than a week, 10 days max, I feel my life force energy start dropping. I just start feeling fatigued. My skin gets bad because I have to eat a lot of grains and legumes and my body's not able to break those down.
Same.
So that's why I've changed things. And now I will consume salmon and I'll also consume chicken. 5 days before, I'll do no chicken. 3 days before, I'll stop doing even fish, where I really only have about 3 days eating vegan. Beforehand, when I was doing vegan, and I was actually trying to be vegan up to 6 months, I've tried eating vegan 5 different times, and the longest that I've been able to last is 6 months. And that was when I was really getting involved in the medicine work, and especially working with ayahuasca. And I felt it taking a lot away from my experiences. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the resources to really go into a ceremony. And I like saying, when we're doing medicine work, it's like a freaking workout. It's like we're running a marathon or doing an Ironman. So we need to have the resources. We need to be recovered. We need to be rested. We need to be clear. Most importantly, we need to be feeding ourselves good food. You can be feeding yourself vegetables, grains, and legumes, but if those aren't good foods for you, it's going to take energy from you. And that's what the legumes and grains were doing for me. They were taking energy from me. I bogged myself down. It was making me feel lethargic. Ever since now eating fish and chicken and then just avoiding that 3 days before, I've noticed a significant increase in what I'm able to really have in my medicine experience and ceremony. And I come out of it more energized now. Beforehand, I was coming out of my medicine ceremonies tired and depleted, and it took me over 2 weeks to recover. So I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And it was very apparent to me that it was more so the vegan diet that I was trying to do, because that's what we're so-called told we have to do.
Yes.
And it shuts us off from listening to our own body.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have clients ask me, do I have to eat vegan for 2-3 weeks? I pretty much say we can try it because it is recommended, and I understand why it is. I have full appreciation why it is, and I appreciate people who can do it. But if you can't sustain yourself, then we will incorporate salmon and chicken. We will make it work. Same goes for day of medicine. There are some clients where I won't have completely fast because their blood sugar is going to dip too low, and they're going to go into the medicine feeling really nauseous and exhausted. And I don't want to put them through that, because you don't have to. So then I'll have them snack on something really light. And that makes the world of a difference.
Yes.
World of a difference.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because the whole conversation around veganism and plant medicines is big, right? And to second what you said, I believe there are people that work fantastically with a vegan diet, right? We are all individuals. And so I respect that decision from that they make. And what I've experienced is the exact same as you. My body works best when I interact with meat, right? And chicken and salmon, right? And so for me, I've done something very similar where, I make sure that I'm giving my body the sustenance it needs. I'm not over consuming, but I am definitely like keeping my calorie base. I mean, I exercise a lot. I'm trying to make sure, I'm making sure that I am ready for this, because like you said, it is a workout, right? And a term that, jumped into my head when you were talking is, without that, it does not give me the capacity to handle what plant medicines are going to show me. And that's exactly what you were chatting about too. And so I'm so glad I asked that, because that was one of the things that even, up until today, I hear about it and I'm like, oh man, it made me feel like, okay, so I'm missing something if I'm not interacting with medicine in this way, right? Which to me is completely false. I mean, if I'm missing anything, it's been hidden in some really good lessons, because every time I interact with plant medicines consciously, responsibly, and well-fed and well nutritioned, I am able to have an experience that always, every single time, leads to some breakthrough. And sometimes the breakthrough can look like a breakdown, but it's important to reframe those as spiritual breakthroughs rather than breakdowns, because what reality do you want to live in? And so I'm so glad I brought that up. And, on the subject of going into plant medicine experiences and having some challenges, I know on Highly Optimized, we talked briefly about your experience with ketamine. And, these are the things that I feel are so important to talk about, because now that things like ketamine and MDMA and whatever are psycho-assisted, right? They're in these professional buildings with professional clinicians, right? And so I know for me, the first time I heard that, I'm like, oh, perfect. I'll go there, and there's no chance that anything bad will happen after the potential of like something that comes up in my mind. But if something bad happens, I'll have people there to handle it. And when I heard your situation, it made me realize real quickly, like, hey, listen, just because you go to a place that has the license to do this does not necessarily mean that you're going in and you can get out, scot-free. And so I'd love for you to bring through, even just a brief summary of that, because I know we went into detail and Highly Optimized, but really what you learned from that experience, right? Because again, these things are now professional in some manner, but there's still a lot of under the market type stuff going. And a lot of people look at the professional stuff as like, that's the way you have to do it, and the rest of the stuff is garbage. And so I'd really love for you to chat and speak on that experience and what you learned as a result in terms of professional versus non-professional quotations.
Definitely. So pretty much what is going on here is we have people teaching others how to drive cars that have never learned how to drive a car themselves.
But they read a book on it.
Yeah, people teaching people how to cook and they don't even know how to cook themselves. What I am metaphorically speaking to is we have people serving medicine, ketamine as an example, that really don't know how to serve the medicine and they really haven't done the medicine themselves, or they haven't been able to purge themselves with the medicine. I see we go through 3 phases when it comes to doing medicine work: the purging, the tonifying, and the regulating phase. Often we have to go a lot through the purging, releasing. Don't get me wrong, we're always releasing. But to the degree we're normally releasing a lot more and we're having to let go and heal a lot of wounding and trauma and understand our consciousness. And then the tonifying stage is when you're able to really start seeing more of the beauty and working with the medicine, and you're not going to be, purging and, vomiting and feeling really uncomfortable in your body. And then the regulating is when you can really start levitating on the medicine and understanding that that's something you can do even without the medicine. So it's very important, and this is what I learned from that ketamine experience, being overdosed and then being left abandoned and having to walk on all fours to the lobby where I was told, stay there, call an Uber, and left. And this is a freaking professional clinic you go to, not just for ketamine, but NADs. It's a concussion repair clinic, very well-known clinic as well. I don't want to mention the name. But I saw that we have people here working with fancy tools, working with ketamine that really don't have any idea of what they're doing. I don't care how much they're charging. They still don't have any idea on really what they're doing. They look fancy. They act like they know what they're talking about because they've memorized everything from a book, but they don't have any experience with it. So they really have no clue what they're doing, period. And I'm not saying everybody doesn't have a clue what they're doing. I'm just saying now we have, unfortunately, a good amount of people that are involved in medicine work, have it be ketamine, have it be ayahuasca and doing these ceremonies, that really don't know what they're doing. And it's very, very dangerous, period, to do the medicine. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're really making those risks go up even more. And that's why you need to be very, very aware on who you go to. You do your research on who you're going to. Talk to other people who've gone. Make sure you feel comfortable. That's step number 1. And make sure you feel comfortable with this person. Have a phone call with them. The intake. Make sure you feel like you can really feel safe with this person. FaceTime them, Zoom them, Skype them. You can see their face, see how they interact. That is so important that we have that connection. Even if you're getting ketamine or bufo or ayahuasca, it's important to have that. Just walking in and not meeting the person, that can really create a lot of resistance between you and connecting with that person, which will limit how safe you're going to feel and how much trust you're going to feel with the medicine. Like you've mentioned to me when we were discussing off the podcast and with cannabis, it's more so who's growing the cannabis rather than if it's going indoor or outdoor.
Yes.
Well, the same kind of goes with the medicine. Not that you have to grow your own medicine and make your own medicine, but having the medicine and serving the medicine, who's serving it is what really is creating and activating the medicine. So that's why it's so crucial to have somebody that has that capacity to really carry and express that love, unconditional love to the medicine, in the medicine, charge it up with the intention that's applicable for the client and the patient, to where that intention, that information can go through them and really hold space. And clearly that wasn't done for me with the ketamine. And that's something I had to learn and see, because that's the beauty I've been able to extract from it. That's the light that there is in it. It was a blessing, because if it wasn't for that, I definitely wouldn't have the understanding of safety and sacredness when it comes to having space in medicine that I do now, if it wasn't for what happened on the ketamine.
I'm very glad I asked you about that, because it brings me to my next question, which is, for those listening who are like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I definitely want to do that. Do you have a couple questions that they might be able to ask their shaman, practitioner, et cetera, that maybe you would ask moving forward after that experience, that might be able to give them a clear indication of whether or not this person is someone they could trust? For instance, maybe something like, how long have you been practicing, or anything like that that comes up for you?
Yeah, I think, of course, the duration, how long you've been practicing, is good. Now, even if you've been practicing, say, for a few years and say you've done over 100 ayahuasca ceremonies, that still really doesn't mean that much, because you could have been doing 100 because you haven't learned after your first time and you keep going back every single weekend. And I'm guilty of that. That's what I was doing when I first was involved in medicine. So yeah, the duration, how long have you been working with the medicine? How long have you been serving the medicine? And when you talk to the person, the shaman, or whoever's serving the medicine, instead of using the word shaman, you'll get a feel for them energetically, more so, especially if they're being honest and truthful. Now, it's hard, but when we're looking for a personal trainer or a nutritionist, well, what's your certification? And then you can look up the certification, see, oh, they came from a good school. They went to a good college. They have their PhD. There's not that really way of tracking that with medicine work. When I've mentioned who I've studied with and who are my teachers in medicine work, to people that really doesn't mean anything because they don't even know who they are. They're just other people. So what I do myself when I get asked questions from people that call me, or have it be they're not asking me a question, I just will share with them what brought me to do what I do now so they feel comfortable too. I explain the medicines and my experiences I've had with them, what I've learned, how I used to be with the medicine when I first started with the medicine, and then now the relationship I have with the medicine, why I'm more intelligent on how I use it, of course. So explaining that to them, they're like, wow, he really does know what he's talking about. He really does know what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Instead of explaining, I've studied with them, I did that, I've read all these books. More so just talking about my own experience and my own training I've put myself through, my own certification Jason's gone through himself in his life. That's been the biggest lesson that I've had to learn from and get certified from before serving the medicine. You have to get certified in your life through purging yourself, and then you can be certified to serve the medicine. And don't get me wrong, we still have stuff to heal. I still have stuff to heal, but it's not to the point where it's going to be flowing through me when I'm serving the medicine. I can empty myself before to where I can be clean and clear to where I'm not going to be, projecting anxiety, projecting fear onto them that I haven't processed myself.
Yeah. You perfectly just explained the idea of looking at someone and their profession quantitatively, right? Which is the way that most people look at it. Oh, what degree do you have? What things can I measure that tell me you're good for the situation versus quality, right? Like you were saying, have an interaction with this person on Zoom, see their face, feel their energy, right? And so what you're doing is coming from a place of vulnerability and a big point, right? And saying, hey, this is why I interact with them. Let's talk about your things and see if we're a good fit, right? Because no matter how good of a practitioner you might be, someone might just not link up with you, right? They might like chocolate ice cream and you like vanilla, right? It's just one of those things. And so I love what you chatted about there about meeting the person, just having a conversation with them. It's not necessarily about where they went or who they trained with. It's like, hey, do I feel safe around this person? Period. And then from there, you can double check it by saying, okay, yeah, let's look into, like, I'd love to ask you where you went or who you train with or whatever, but the number one thing, and I felt this too, is do I feel safe around this person? Do I feel this person has the capacity and the wherewithal to handle what might transpire during the ceremony? And, you were talking about your degree of healing that you're still going through. And personally, how I feel about that is that's what helps us be relatable as medicine users, as medicine practitioners, allowing someone to know, like, hey, we're not perfect. We're not the guru effect, right? We're not up here, figured it all out, right? And I can promise you that anything that I have going on is never going to affect you. But, I feel like all of the people we look up to as heroes, when you realize, like, this is something I've gone through just in life in general, but especially with plant medicines, when I've been looking at people like, like Paul or Aubrey Marcus or anyone like this, a lot of the times I'm like, wow, they're so far up there, right? Like, oh my God. And then the ego, imposter syndrome, perfectionism starts, making a nice concoction and cocktail of fun stuff. And one of the things I've noticed is in the episodes where they're vulnerable and say, yeah, we're still going through shit. Like one of the things Paul said, which he's hilarious in how he says everything, but when we were at Zen in the Garden, I don't think you were at this one. It was the one in November at his house. And he was talking to some guy and he's like, hey, it's cool. You got an ego, man. I still got one too. I'm trying to figure it out, and it was like those kind of things of like, hey, we're all still human beings. If we had it figured out, we wouldn't have decided to come down and embody a human being again, right? We still have lessons to learn. And so that's what allows us to be relatable. And so I love that you brought that up, because that I feel is one of the most important things when I'm looking for someone to do medicine with is, am I relatable to this person? Can they laugh about, their own experiences of life and say, we got you, you're good. That tells me everything I need to hear.
Yeah. And then next thing is integration, asking the facilitator, the shaman, how does he integrate? Does he, teach integration? Does he really focus on integration? that's a very essential thing in medicine work. That's something that is always involved in my ceremony work and my sessions that I do with my clients, is at least spending an hour just integrating. And that can be in discussion, that can be teaching art therapy. I always recommend art therapy to all my clients for, future integration or integration, pretty much leaving my place for a couple months. Consistent art therapy, give them specific practices that are applicable from their experience for them to be doing, which will really continue the medicine out. So it will be like the gift that keeps giving, is focusing on those integration techniques. And this is another thing that I've just learned from my own experience. So this isn't something I have heard, so I don't know how many people relate. There are different integration techniques that are applicable to different medicines. So the integration techniques with bufo is completely different than integration techniques with ayahuasca, San Pedro, mushrooms, and acid. And I've really seen that's really stood out to me. And also kind of with working with the medicine is like, you got to have a lot of experience with the medicine and understand it. Not that you all like completely understand it, but at least have a grasp of the medicine so you can relate to somebody else's experience. If you haven't done 5 enough bufo or bufo enough, then you're not going to be able to relate really to where they're going and what they're experiencing on the medicine, etc. But art therapy I found to be fascinating for a lot of DMT or 5-MeO or bufo work, with continuing to extract and pull things out of their experience. And that's the thing. We think it's just done. It's over when we're off the medicine. But no, things are going to be flowing up crazy fast and into your psyche. And you need to be able to gather it, express it like a sponge. And painting art therapy is like a sponge for that information that's just waiting for you to get it extracted out. So that's how it can be so profound, is like to hear from somebody a month or 2 months later sharing something more grand and profound than what they shared with me after the medicine from the art therapy they've been doing. And you would relate to that. And that's how we've met at Paul Chek's Art Mandala workshop. It's like, whoa, look what came out of us. Look what came out of us. And very little of us, I'm sure there, had experience with plant medicines or have had experience with plant medicines. So it's just imagine painting right after doing, a deep plant medicine experience. What can be coming out of you? It's mind blowing.
Yeah. And one of the coolest things about the art therapy experience, right, is, as Paul says, the soul has the opportunity to commune directly to you without the challenges coming from the ego, right? Because if I ask you, hey, Jason, how are you feeling? And you're going to answer me verbally, your ego is already constructing defense patterns to make sure it protects you. I'm doing good. And that's why you always hit them with the second part. How you really doing? And that really messes with people. But it's funny because what I found with art therapy, and I hadn't come directly from a plant medicine ceremony, although I had done quite a few plant medicine ceremonies over the past 3 months before that event. What I noticed was when Paul read what was coming out of there, I knew all of that to be true, and it made it much bigger. And then what I was able to do is go, okay, so that's where I'm going. That feeling, that version of me, I felt the feeling there. And then I was able to coach myself and go, okay, what things help me feel like that? Okay, when am I at my best, right? If the vision is me being this amazing person who I'm proud of and all of these things and continuing to get better and become aware of new things, okay, cool. That's the grand vision. And then the integration became, okay, what things can I add into my daily life, daily goals, things like that facilitate that flower in me to bloom, right? And that was so amazing because, like you were saying, if you go through a plant medicine experience, especially something like 5 or bufo, you don't even think about after. I mean, it's so much at the end of the day, it's simply wasted potential, right? It's like, why are you doing these medicines, right? They can be fun, right? I always say that you don't have to take them super seriously and not smile when you do them, right? But that being said, if you're only going into it to have fun, you're missing 99.9% of the reason that people have interacted with plant medicines for millennia, right? Which is to gain information from your higher self, from source, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, to allow you to have a better experience of life. So you take the experience, you then write it all out, paint it out, verbalize it to someone that is knowledgeable and knows how to handle these things. And then you take the big picture and make it smaller and smaller. Okay, what can I add into my life? Okay, I'm going to give myself more time to take daily walks. I'm going to give myself time to play games, right? And allow my inner child to come out and realize that although it does not make any logical sense, right? Especially being a business owner, this feeling. It's like, wait, so you're telling me that instead of doing an extra outreach every day or spending an hour at outreach, I should go outside and play Frisbee with my friends? Like, what is that going to do? Logically, It doesn't make any sense, right? This is like my personal situation. But what I realized was when I give myself that hour to play more Frisbee, all my posts that week end up more me. I get more leads from that. And I end up working with more people who I can truly help because I'm coming at that fully charged. And so that all came from integrating from Paul Chek's, right? Like all of this play and less serious take on life. And so that's just a personal example of how exactly what you're talking about applied to me and has allowed my life to open up so much more. It's just like you said, it's the plant medicines and it's the integration. And even before that, it's like understanding what plant medicines are and how they work in the body through energy systems like Tai Chi, Qi Gong. And I love that. It's like knowledge, experience, integration. So it's easy. It can be easy rather.
Yeah, it can be simplified.
Yes.
I would say.
I like that. Yes, simplified.
Simplifying it conserves energy for us to put the energy directed exactly where it needs to go and be.
Yeah. So, one of the things I love chatting with guests about, considering you had your fair share of experiences, what has been the most beautiful takeaway or beautiful experience you've had, right? Maybe it wasn't one takeaway, but just an experience where you really, things made sense. And maybe that transitioned into like the reason that plant medicines make sense to you now forever, right? I'm curious what that experience was and allow us to feel that experience with you, right? Because this is what I love getting into is like what experience changed you forever.
Understanding death, at least from my perspective on my understanding of it. It was an experience I had with 5-MeO-DMT, the pure one. We were on a hike and we found a beautiful little waterfall and a beautiful little, kind of like little river to swim in near the waterfall with nice big stones and rocks surrounding it. So we both were on these stones and rocks. We decided to sit on them. They were large enough to where we can sit on. And that's where we were doing medicine work. And now what we were doing is something called bottoms up. So there's deep dive and bottoms up. Deep dive is pretty much being completely out. Bottoms up is sitting upright in the lotus posture and working with the medicine with your eyes open, mantra, intention. That's pretty much the area where you can achieve a significant amount of healing and work if you know what you're doing. So we were doing bottoms up with where we were. Now, this was the teacher that I was actually working with at the time. I still work with him actually right now, just not as often or consistently. So he was more so training me at that time, really to hold myself up doing bottoms up, because you have to be really experienced with the medicine to really do bottoms up. And that's what I was training with or training throughout that time. So he served me the medicine before he served himself. And he wanted to make sure I'd be safe and not fall down from where I was sitting, because if I fell, I could have really got hurt. So he ended up serving me the medicine, and I ended up taking a little too much of a hit to where it turned into a deep dive. And fortunate that he knew what he's doing, and that's why he was my teacher. He was able to set me down in an area to where half of my body was or not half my body, but my arm was in the water, and the rest was up on some other rocks, smaller rocks that I was laying on the other side of my body. And the only reason I know this happened is because he ended up telling me it all. But I completely had a death and rebirth experience, just simple as that. I don't need to fancy it up or say something wild happened. I straight up had a death, and it was just magnificent. I don't even have a word to even summarize it. The word is not the thing. It's beyond words. It really is beyond thought. Beyond thought. Death is beyond thought. If you think of death from thought, we're scared of it. And the reincarnation I had and the rebirth I had with just my arm being in the water, it was sunny, like some of the mist from the waterfall was on my face, and I was just like, whoa, just like I've never seen life before. Never, ever, ever, ever. And I just get up and I just start yelling, it's all a joke. It's all a joke, all a joke, all a joke. The joke is on us. We're taking things way too serious, way too serious. We're getting mad. We're getting frustrated. We're getting upset. We're getting sad because we're taking life too serious, and it's going to make us feel that way because it's trying to wake us to fuck up.
Yes, the
Not
law of
to
polarity.
make it a joke, but it's just to slow the fuck down. That's what we're really being taught here, to slow down, be present, not be present from having the past modify the present, but be present and die of the past. That's the thing. Death is dying of the past. Who knows what happens really when our soul takes off from her physical body. I don't even know if you want to call that death,
Mm.
but death in this life is dying of the past.
Mm.
That would be just transitioning, I would say, more than anything.
Mm.
My mom transitioned. I don't like saying she died. I say she transitioned.
Mm.
That's what she did. Nothing died rather than the physical body.
I love your translation there. And it's funny because I translated death too to expansion, right? Because really, what is someone doing when they pass on? They're expanding, right? They're going from simply a human vesicle into the whole universe. And so with my father, right, I refuse to say he died because he did not die. He continues to live on. That's what I believe. So therefore, he expanded, right? And it's funny, you know, we could go down a whole wormhole of language, right? But what I really want to focus on here is what you were talking about and what I personally believe, and I imagine you might believe too. I was talking to you before the podcast about doing breath work on plant medicines. And I've had quite a few experiences now where I've led breath work ceremonies while under the influence of different medicines, particularly LSD does it. And I've noticed that when we do it together, we'll do 10 breaths, hold and squeeze. Doesn't take much. Like this is literally a minute-long breathwork thing of just very fast breathing into the nose, out through the mouth. On the 10th one, breathe in, sip, swallow, and squeeze for about 3 seconds, blow out. Everyone will leave their body, right? And when they come back in, the interesting thing is everyone, before remembering that they're a human being, like the second before that, starts cracking up laughing. And we're all looking at each other like barely remembering who one another is. And then we, of course, remember within milliseconds, but we're all laughing and we didn't know why. And it happened time and time and time again. And so I started getting curious. I'm like, all right, what's going on there? And so I have a theory, right? That kind of lines up with what you were saying. And my theory is that in some way, shape, or form, we get the knowing that death is the easiest part of life. As Ram Dass says, it's like taking off a tight shoe. And it is the cosmic giggle. We come back laughing because we realize how much time we waste and attention we waste and presence we waste fearing this death, right? Fearing death. When in reality, when you pass on, it's probably going to be very quick and unexpected, and that's it, right? And so there's really nothing you can control there. And so the gift, like you were saying, is to slow down and realize that, hey, this is just a stop on a train that's going infinitely, right? So instead of running around trying to figure out what supply yet, instead, what you should do is realize, hey, there'll more than likely be supplies at the next stop too. Let me just get what is going to help me feel better, make sure I'm nourished and all these things, and allow me to, you know, let go of all of this baggage I'm carrying around the subject of death, right? And that's why I love what you said, like changing death to transitioning or expanding, you know, those things are so important because those plant the seeds for them when you do a plant medicine experience like that, for you to go, oh shit, I was right. Right. And that is so freeing. I've had one specific on 5 as well, experience like that, where I realized I'm like, and I have a mentor who said this to me. He's like, don't ever feel bad for someone who died. He's like, I get it. Like you can feel bad because you lost someone, but don't feel bad for them. He's like, they are riding the lightning. And I knew exactly what he meant because I've been there. And that was the exact feeling I felt, where it was like, this is amazing. I'm not anywhere near the point where I want to die or pass on or expand or whatever we want to talk about. But having that freedom and knowing like, Hoka, hey, today is a good day to die, that whole thing has helped me a lot in becoming present and having a higher quality experience of life. And so I'm so glad you brought that up.
Today is a good day to die. Every day is a good day to die. Die every second. Die every second of the past. And that's why it's so scary on medicine experiences, because we have so much attachments with everything in life. We're attached to our cars. We're attached to our homes. We're attached to our partners. We don't want to let go of them. And that just shows you how much of the past we're holding on to. And the medicine clears us out from the past, but we have to surrender. That's very scary. So death, what we say as death, what I translate as death, is erasing and completely clearing the content of the past. That's death. Rebirth is being present now without any modification of the past. The shoulda, coulda, wouldas, the traumas, the wounding, all that has to be erased. And we can't hold on to it and not process it. But it can't be erased until we process it.
You said it perfectly, man. You know, and again, it brings it back once again. What is the key here? Simply awareness, right? And that's where everything we've talked about in this episode, from Qigong to plant medicines to, yoga, fitness, these conversations, everything has the opportunity to give you awareness. And, we won't even jump down the rabbit hole of, how the whole offended culture, right, has challenged that ability to become aware, right? Because we can have opposing views and still high five after. And that comes from a place of being okay and having a good self-image of yourself. And once again, all of those things can be helped through plant medicines. Do I feel that every single person should interact with a plant medicine? Of course not, right? Like they're not meant for everyone. And it's simply like this, the way I look at it is I've talked to some people and they're like, listen, man, like that all sounds cool, but I'm cool with life as it is. And that's awesome, right? Like this is not everyone's quest, right? I don't think everyone needs to figure all this stuff out or ask these questions or anything. But if you listen to this episode and you're one of these people who's curious, that might be a good idea that the potential for a positive experience with plant medicines is inside of you, right? And then it becomes, who am I going to do it with? Make sure I'm treating myself right, make sure I'm finding the right people and go for it, And so that's like the advice I give people when they ask, should I do a plant medicine? I'm like, honestly, it has nothing to do with me. It's not my opinion that matters. It's, do you think this is a desire, which is something that rates very low on David Hawkins scale, or is it a calling, something that you feel is going to give something to your life, and that's how I always separate it.
Yeah, no, perfectly said, man. Really well said.
Thank you, man. So, man, this has been an absolute blast. We've got to riff once again. We got Highly Optimized last week, which is getting released tomorrow, which is awesome. And then we'll have this being released, I believe, next week. And so for those listening, thank you so much for tuning in. And one of the things I want to ask you, Jason, is, where can people find you to learn more about you? And especially to just pick your brain. I mean, you have such an incredible amount of knowledge around these plant medicines, around the practices that can facilitate a higher expression of these plant medicines. And so I really want to make sure that anyone looking to find you has ample opportunity to do just that and find you. Absolutely.
Do you mind if I spend just a few minutes sharing something that I mentioned I'd share at the beginning of the podcast that listeners may be asking, when is he going to share it?
You know, this podcast and my podcast have no rules, my man. So take it away.
Love it, man. Thank you. So about the three bodies, the physical, the energetic, and the spirit body. So let's just put it this way. The physical, our consciousness, the energy body, our energetic body, our subconscious, and then the spirit body, our creative subconscious. Point that I'm making here, when I'm doing the medical Chi Gong work for preparation, I am opening up and detaching the three bodies and doing the work in the programming in them and reprogramming. You got to reprogram the creative subconscious before programming the subconscious or conscious. If you only program the subconscious, the energy body, and not reprogram the creative subconscious will override the programming you put into the conscious or the subconscious. So I open, reprogram, and then I keep things relatively open enough to where when they do the medicine, that can come in and allow the reprogramming that I would normally do without the medicine. But I allow the medicine to do that. And then after we've gone through some talking integration, I put them back on the treatment table, and then I seal the deal. I seal the three bodies. So I seal it in a way to where now the new programming in the creative subconscious will allow the subconscious and the conscious to follow. So the actions and choices they want to make now on the medicine, they'll still be feeling the power and strength of that weeks, months, because the programming is confirmed. That's the thing. It's confirmed. It's like uploading software and pressing save. If you don't press save, nothing holds. And that's the thing.
You're going to have a bad day.
How to press save.
Yes. That's beautiful. And what I saw there is a perfect word, harmony, right? You're creating harmony within the human being. And I imagine awareness, intention, all of those things are part of that harmony. That therefore, it's almost like they did their homework before they got to class versus doing their homework while the teacher's going around to check it. When you do the homework before class, you actually have an ability to understand what the homework is saying. So that way, when you go take the test, you're like, oh, I remember this because I really did it, right? And so what you're doing is giving them an opportunity to do their homework and really get the lessons before the test hits the table. And that is, I think the definition of intentional, conscious, responsible plant medicine use and responsible living, really, at the end of the day.
Responsible breathing.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for allowing me to share that. But yeah, so where people can find me, they can find me on Instagram at Dr. Gandzjuk. So Dr.Gandzjuk, all lowercase, Dr. Gandzjuk on Instagram. Facebook as well, Jason Gandzjuk. So it's Jason, Jason, Gandzjuk, Gand, as in David, Z as in zebra, J as in Jason, UK. Also, I have a business Facebook for my holistic practitioner business, specialized health and exercise coaching. So there's a Facebook page for that. I'm in the process of launching my new website, Jason Gandzjuk, Integrative Plant Medicine Therapy, which will have a lot of the highlighted and key services I offer with integrating the medicines with the work. different medicine, different work that I'll be doing with clients. And my email is jason@specializedhealthandexercise.com. So you can also email me if you have any questions. The easiest way to probably reach out to me is Instagram, direct message, as I'll be able to get back to you as soon as possible that way.
Awesome, man. And, if you didn't catch the drift yet with my other podcast, I still have one question to ask you. What do you say, man? You up for it?
Bag Brothers?
Bag Brothers Unite. For anyone who's unaware, Jason and I think I mentioned this in Highly Optimized too, but it's worth repeating. We are both volcano vaporizer lovers. And so when you hear us say Bag Brothers, you can hop in and join us for a bag, right? If you have a volcano handy and you'd like to puff a bag of your favorite herbs and medicines. And so in Bag Brothers tradition, I have a question for you, man. And that question is this. If someone listening was just swayed by you to experience psychedelic medicines for the first time, what is the one piece of advice you would give them to allow them to have the smoothest experience possible?
For them to more so focus on out of the medicine. If, for example, they are living in a situation that they know they need to change, but they're not changing, and if they're going to do the medicine and go back to that situation, that environment, then really that's going to defeat the purpose. So that is one honest thing. If you're looking into doing medicine, say, for example, you live with your partner and you really feel that it's time to split apart or move out or have her move out, and you're not willing to do that now and you want to do the medicine thinking it will heal that, it's not going to. It may probably push you more so to move out or have her move out, but knowing you need to be open to that. And if you go back to a situation, for example, with your girlfriend and you feel like you two shouldn't be together, then it's going to be very hard to integrate, and that experience can completely go out and have nothing to stick and mold and imprint onto. So That's a very important thing, because that's something I commonly see as it's the situation, it's the environment we return back to that pretty much snaps us out of the medicine and we can't integrate.
Perfectly said. Clean your house before you have the party, right? That's the way I love thinking about it. Yeah. So guys, one thing I have realized in today's world is that there is no shortage of information. That being said, when I am hearing someone speak and relay information to me, I wade through the endless information and conflicting views in the world by asking myself this simple question. What results is this person getting, and are those the results I want in my life? Needless to say, when I met Jason, that answer was a definitive yes. And since meeting him, I have kept a close eye on the information he puts out, as he is as real as it gets. He has truly gone through some incredible challenges and has come out on the other side having those challenges make him rather than break him. And that is why I'm so excited to share his views with all of you and preach what an amazing soul he is. Jason is dedicated to helping the Garden of Earth be greener than when he found it. And if you listen to this episode and felt inspired to dive into the subject of plant medicines, then please do yourself a favor and reach out to him to learn more information about this subject and to allow him to help you determine if these medicines could be right for you at this time in your journey. And also, I think I speak for all of us listening to this show when I say it is an absolute blast to dive into the guest journeys, and my number one goal is to continue getting the message in this show out to the world. And by each of you taking the time to leave ratings and reviews on iTunes, it helps me in doing just that, to which I am eternally grateful for. Dr. Jason, my man, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. And until next time, my friend, may your journey be smooth and full of light. Aho.